Intrepid, you've got a real problem with your PvX design right now, and it's showing more every day of Steam Early Access. We're rolling into week 3 of Ashes of Creation in front of millions of MMO players, and the biggest point of friction is still the same. Open world PvP plus corruption is leaving both sides unhappy. PvP players feel punished and unrewarded. PvE players feel like they're being forced into non-consensual PvP that can delete an entire play session. That's not hardcore. That's a retention killer. I'm not saying remove PvP. I'm not saying make everything safe. Ashes is built on risk, economy, and player conflict. That's fine. The issue is the current system is creating the worst version of risk. It's uneven, it's easy to exploit, and it feels bad even when you play correctly. Here's how it works today in plain terms. PvP can happen in almost the entire world. There are a few exceptions. Inside settlements, guards will kill flagged players, but that does not stop someone from killing you first and letting the guards clean up later. And then there's the protection buff, the one that got expanded after a certain high-profile streamer was getting targeted non-stop. It used to be protection until level 5 in starter areas. Now it's protection until level 10, and it's basically everywhere. To actually attack another player, you flag for PvP. The other person does not have to flag back. If you kill someone who isn't flagged, you gain corruption. Corruption is supposed to be the anti-griefing system, the red player deterrent. You become more visible, easier to track, and if you die while corrupted, you take heavier penalties, including dropping gear based on corruption level. And here's the part that matters most. The victim still takes real death penalties. If you don't fight back and you die, you can lose huge chunks of materials. If you do fight back, the penalties are lighter, but now you're flagged and you're in the PvP system whether you wanted it or not. Either you accept the full loss or you flag and open the door for escalation. On paper, the intent makes sense. Ashes wants risk in the open world. Risk makes the economy matter. Risk makes travel matter. Risk makes moving value feel like gameplay. In a true player-driven MMO economy simulator, you can't have everything be safe all the time, or the world becomes a theme park with an auction house. But intent doesn't matter if execution creates a loop where everyone feels cheated. The biggest example right now is crates. Running crates is one of the best moneymakers in Ashes of Creation. You package goods at one settlement, transport them to another, and the longer and riskier the trip, the better the profit. That's classic MMO design. That's supposed to be the perfect PvX activity. PvE players get a trade run, PvP players get targets, guilds get reasons to escort, and nodes get traffic. The problem is how easy it is to turn that system into low-effort griefing that dodges corruption in practice. Here's what's happening in the real game. Most players transport crates using mules. Mules are pack animals, and they're not tanks. They're easy to kill. And once the mule dies, your whole run can collapse fast. So groups started using a simple trick. They send a low-level alt like a level 10 rogue to hit the mule or force an interaction. Now the transporter has two options, and both are bad. Option 1, don't fight back. The mule dies. You lose the crates. 30 to 60 minutes of travel, planning, and time is gone. For a casual player, that might be their entire play session. Option 2, fight back to protect your mule. But to fight back, you have to flag. The moment you flag, the alt's higher level friends, often level 25 and geared, can jump in and kill you with no corruption risk because now you're flagged too. They take your crates anyways. That is not risk versus reward. That's a forced lose-lose scenario. And it's not rare. It's not some edge case. It's becoming the meta because it's efficient, it's low risk for the attackers, and it feels unstoppable for the target. This is the exact kind of behavior corruption is supposed to stop. Yet it's happening constantly, which tells us corruption is not doing its job. Now let's talk about why both sides are mad. PvP-focused players say corruption is too punishing. They feel like the game discourages PvP, even though the game sells itself as PvX with conflict as a core pillar. They'll point out that there are PvP events and systems, caravans, lawless zones, harbingers, yet they still don't engage. The honest question is why? Is it because rewards aren't meaningful? Is it because the loop is inconvenient? Or is it because some players don't actually want fair fights? They want easy ganks. I'm not going to paint every PvPer with that brush, because plenty of PvPers want real fights, real stakes, and real competition. But the current design encourages the kind of PvP that feels like bullying, because it's the safest and most profitable way to do it. On the PvE side, the frustration is simple. I just lost my time. They don't care if the attacker goes red. They don't care if the attacker has to grind corruption off later. The victim's loss is immediate and personal. When you've got limited time to play, one bad death can feel like your night is ruined. So you end up with this situation where PvPers aren't getting the PvP game they want, and PvE players are getting a PvP game they never asked for. Steam Early Access made this worse because the early game now looks like a safer, more guided MMO than the mid-game reality. The first-time experience is more linear and theme park. It's built to feel like something familiar to a New World, WoW, ESO, or Guild Wars 2 player. That's not automatically bad. New players need onboarding. The problem is that the game doesn't clearly communicate what changes at level 10 when protection ends. Most players don't even realize that they have a protection buff. They just play. And then suddenly they can be attacked, lose materials, and get pulled into a system they don't understand. That kind of surprise doesn't create hardcore excitement. It creates refunds, negative reviews, and people telling their friends not to bother. So yes, this is a PvP and corruption problem, but it's also a communication problem. If you're going to build a PvX MMO, your players need to understand the rules before the rules punish them. So what do we do? I think there are two directions, and one is clearly better for Ashes. The first, and in my opinion the best, is to create meaningful PvP zones that actually give players a reason to be there, not just tiny lawless pockets that rotate with no real content. I'm talking about bigger rotating conflict zones that cover meaningful space, even in entire nodes surrounding territory, while keeping the settlement core protected, so crafting stations and basic services don't become grief hubs. And these rotating PvP zones increase the value, higher resource density, better rarity chances, better caravan or crate turn-in value, more event spawns, something that makes players say, yeah, it's dangerous, but it's worth it. Then PvP players have a place to hunt and fight where the game is openly telling you this is a danger zone. PvE players have a clean choice, avoid it or take the risk for better rewards. That's how you build consent into a PvX game without deleting conflict. It's not safe everywhere, it's clear danger somewhere, and it creates actual player-driven hotspots. And because nodes rise and fall, I agree it should rotate and not be decided by mayors. Don't put this power in player politics right now. Make it a system-level rotation so it stays fair and predictable. The second option is the extreme one, separate PvE and PvP servers. I'm not saying it can't work. Technically, nodes, sieges, caravans, and wars can still exist in a PvE rule set. You could keep structured conflict without open ganking. But there's a real historical issue here. In a lot of MMOs, PvP servers shrink over time. PvE becomes the default, and many players who call themselves PvP players don't actually want balanced PvP. They want to prey on the PvE crowd. If you separate servers, you might expose that reality, and your PvP servers could struggle. So I see server splits as a last resort. If you do it because your current PvX implementation can't satisfy enough people to sustain growth. If Intrepid does not want to change the world design, then corruption itself has to get teeth. Right now, it's too easy to game. First, corruption removal is too flexible. If you can clear corruption through almost any XP gain, you can just grind it off in ways not intended. Or worse, you can use loopholes where friends kill you, you unstuck, or you root around the pain in ways that don't actually punish the behavior. Second, the gear drop mechanic is being exploited. If your friends can recover your drop gear, then the risk of corruption death is fake. A real deterrent needs real loss. One strong option is gear destruction instead of gear drop when a corrupted player dies. Not all gear, not always, but enough that being corrupted becomes a serious decision. If you want to be the red guy, fine, but it should hurt. Third, the low-level alt exploit needs direct counterplay. If a level 10 can trigger a flag scenario that lets level 25 players farm you with no meaningful downside, then corruption is being bypassed by design. There are multiple ways to address this without killing PvP. You can add level difference rules where assisting an under-leveled flagged player against a much higher level target triggers corruption risk. You can add diminishing returns or flag protections around caravans and crate runs. You can tie criminal behavior penalties to the whole party, not just the alt. The core idea is simple. Stop letting the system be solved by disposable alts. And last, you have to communicate the rules in-game. Tell new players what PvP protection is, when it ends, and what corruption actually means. Explain crate risk clearly. Give players a quick warning when they enter a high-risk region. If you want players to accept risk, they need to understand it. Surprise is not good design. Surprise is what makes people feel tricked. Here's the supportive truth. Ashes of Creation still has the foundation for something special. The economy, the crafting potential, the node idea, the promise of meaningful conflict. Those are all strong pillars. But PvX only works when both sides feel like they have agency. Right now, too many players feel like they're being forced into bad outcomes they can't reasonably avoid. Intrepid, you don't have to pick PvP or PvE. You have to pick clarity, fairness, and systems that can't be exploited by the lowest effort meta. Give PvP players real places to fight for real rewards. Give PvE players real ways to choose risk instead of being baited into it. And if you keep corruption, make it actually scary for the people who abuse it. If you want my quick bottom line, it's this: make conflict more intentional and make crime more costly. If you've enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up or like and a share, and I'll see you in Vera.